Sarah Maka Ugbabe, Director of One in Nigeria, joins us now to take a look at the challenges and opportunities that face Africa in this fight against COVID-19. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Layo, thanks for having me.
Now, today is a significant day in Africa's fight on the COVID-19 pandemic. Today marks 3 months since the virus was first confirmed on the continent. Lesotho on Wednesday declared its first case of the virus, becoming the last African country to do so. What is your take on Africa's journey so far in combating this pandemic?
Yes, so this thing has revealed a lot to us. You know, that there's a few positive things have happened. Since the pandemic arrived, as you know, viruses don't know borders and they don't know geographies. What we've seen African leaders do is come together in solidarity. It's something that we've not seen leaders do in other parts of the world, let's be clear. But African leaders have banded together. The African finance ministers came together and asked for $100 billion of stimulus for the economy. We know that the AU is holding calls with many African leaders on a weekly basis. We know they're Africa envoys. So that solidarity has been very positive. We've also seen the private sector step up. We've seen private sector know that we're all in the same boat, and they've come up with things in Lagos and South Africa. Private sector philanthropists across the continent have really been stepping up. So that solidarity, that spirit of we're all in this together has been really heartening to see. But the journey is going to be tough ahead for us because the lockdowns, as you know, many countries locked down. South Africa's locked down, Ghana locked down and lifted. South Africa is doing a modified lockdown. Nigeria lockdown is lifted. It's apart from Kano and other parts of the nation. But what we've seen the lockdown do is that it really suppressed the livelihoods of many of our citizens. So it's not sustainable. So we're seeing that hunger is on the rise, malnutrition is on the rise. The economic impact is going to be enormous. First of all, we know that with the virus, there's been a slowdown globally, but there's also been a slowdown within the continent. And if we look at a country like Nigeria with depressed fundamentals around oil prices and our revenues projection, we know it's going to be a long road ahead. So the lockdowns have had an impact on the way that our society has been operating at economically. We've also seen Africa contribute to science, right? We've seen those test kits from Senegal being developed that you can, a rapid test that you can test for COVID. We've seen an herbal infusion coming out of Madagascar. So Africa has not been silent on the science route, but at the same time, we haven't seen enough testing happening on the continent. Again, there was a call by the AU Africa Center for Disease Controls. We need regions, we need the components of the testers within the continent, and Africa doesn't manufacture it. So I think there's a call for us as on the continent to look inward. How do we ensure we have these things that we need, PPEs, masks and gloves that we import from China, from the EU? How do we create those on the continent so that we're not impacted by lockdowns like this, a global slowdown? We also need to see governance increase. So we've seen Africa CDC step up with information. We've seen the Nigerian CDC step up as well. But we need more. We need more governance around not just the health aspects, but palliatives. We need a bit more transparency. We've seen what this has done to a vulnerable population. We've seen the efforts the government has done, laudable efforts, 3.6 million people on a database in Nigeria. But what we need is a lot more transparency because we're seeing that there's trust between government and people is a little shaky, and this will really exacerbate things. So we need the government to be a lot more transparent. 2 more points before I hand it back to you, Layo. One is around the health impact. We started this journey on a fragile health landscape on the continent. We see what it's doing to other countries. It's pushing them to the brink. America, Europe, Italy. For us, it's also going to push us to the brink. We're not seeing the same numbers as they're seeing there, but we started on a really low footing. Attention to healthcare needs to be increased. And lastly, the economic impact. Africa is going out looking for debt now. Many countries are giving a stimulus. We're borrowing money to get ourselves a stimulus. That needs to be adhered to, and we see the world is responding. But once that debt comes in, we need to make sure we plug all the leaks. So that's the journey we've been through on the continent. But I feel that the journey ahead is still far.
Yes, like you said, the economic impact has been enormous, especially because of the lockdowns across many countries on the continent. But what are some of your recommendations, for the economic recovery of every country, particularly Nigeria?
So there are a few things that we need to think about. This this COVID has given us an opportunity for us to reset. We know that the stimulus is coming in. IMF just gave Nigeria a significant stimulus. Nigeria requires a lot more revenue. Once that revenue comes in, we need to focus on the force multiplier sectors. What are those? The ones that create jobs. Jobs are going to be, if jobs were important before, jobs are going to be even more important now. So where are those force multiplying sectors? Agriculture is one. There's right now a call from SMEs that are involved in agriculture, SMEs involved in other sectors, asking government for palliatives. We need to ensure that those organizations, those businesses that grow the economy, increase jobs, are not don't languish in this moment that we're in. So looking at when the debt comes in or when the resources come in, how we use it for those sectors, food is going to be a big issue going forward. We already see depressed global supply chains for food. If we don't address the food issue, the projections from the World Food Program is we're going to see biblical proportion famine on the continent. That's something that we cannot afford. So what are our food supply chains within Nigeria? What are other countries' food supply chains? Attention needs to be put to those. How we store the food, how we grow the food, how we ensure distribution of the food. The third element I must stress is we need to plug those leaks. We need to plug leaks within our system. Those areas where it feels like sometimes there's a basket that has holes in it. Those areas where funding goes through, we need to plug those leaks. Governance is going to be really important. We saw on the continent that there was a $1 trillion scandal where leaks went out of the country either through corruption, through foreign investment that didn't stay within the countries, and those resources left. So we need to see where those leaks are, and we need to plug them. Those three areas, bringing in revenues, focusing on the force multiplying sectors, and plugging the leaks, are going to be really important. We have a chance to build better. We need to use that chance.
All right then, Sarah Maka Ugbabe, Director of One in Nigeria. Thank you so much for your thoughts on Network Africa.
Thanks for having me, Lyle.